Is it
Okay,
good?
it's good.
Yeah, that's all right.
Hey, everybody! This is another live stream. We're gonna talk about healthcare, the British versus the American healthcare. So, you mind
Yeah.
introducing yourself, Smug Capitalist?
Yeah. I'm on the internet as the Smug Capitalist, and I'm currently at university studying politics, philosophy, and economics. And I'd class myself as a right-wing libertarian. That'll be me on the political compass. Not a lot of government and private ownership. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. So, so I like to discuss the British AES system because I was told by someone it's the best system in the world as of right now.
Um, I wouldn't say it's the best system. I'd say it depends on what you want out of it. I think it's more of a broad question than it's the best system, because in another country it wouldn't be the best system. If it was a more populated country, it wouldn't be the best system. If it was a country with more money, it wouldn't be the best system. Um, I think that people are always misconstrued that just because you make something universal means it's available to everyone. Whereas when you've got somewhere like the UK, the NHS is good for people that say, I don't know, like, break a leg. Like if you break your leg in the UK, you'll probably be looked after or something like that. But if you were to get like a terminal disease, you're fucked. Like you'll be waiting for a hospital bed for a few months before you even get looked after. So it depends on what you want out of the healthcare system as well.
Um, yeah. Any thoughts? It seems also relevant. Any thoughts on the Charlie Gard boy?
The Charlie got it was I didn't read up a lot about that. That was the boy that had a terminal illness, and I didn't really look too much into it. I know the news story, but I don't know the ins and outs of it. Like, do you wanna give a background on what that's about?
All right, Charlie Gard was born with born in a rare condition, something got to do with genes, something about mitochondria. Um, Apparently, the British AS system refused treatment for him, even though the parents crowdfunding the money. I think they received over like £2 million so they get treatment for Charlie in the U.S. But the British AAS system refused it because they claim that it'll cause Charlie prolonged suffering.
Right. Well, that seems like it seems to be a doctor's advice. If the child's going to suffer regardless, then that's the doctor's decision. That's not the healthcare system. That seems to be an educated decision. Regardless of what healthcare system that was brought up from, that would have been the decision of the doctor, right?
It's not the thing. It's just the British AS. The parents found a U.S. doctor willing to try to experiment the treatment on Charlie, and the British AS system refused. So the parents fought a lengthy court battle, but due to the court, Charlie's condition actually progressed to be untreatable.
Okay. Like I said, it seems to be down to the doctor willing to do it. I mean, I think it's a great example of why we don't need free healthcare, because the people that advocate paid healthcare also stress that a good alternative is voluntary charity. And that's a case in point. If they got £2 million for a child with a rare disease, that's case in point that we live in a world now where charity doesn't have to be forced through government. It can be at the expense of people willing to pay for that child.
Yeah, just also the I didn't really like the reasoning of the courts refusing. Actually, I think it was the courts refusing Charlie's parents to do the treatment because it will prolong the suffering of the child. It will prolong the prolonged death for Charles. But
Yeah.
just but every medical treatment always prolong life. So I would say it's worth the try. No?
I think in them cases, I think it's down to the parents. I'd say in them cases, unless if the parents were actively trying to harm their child, I do think that doctors. I don't believe that a doctor isn't going to know as much as, say, a courtroom. Like they would have probably have had medical professionals in that courtroom, but if they had a doctor analyze the situation and then that doctor turned around and said we can or can't do this because it's going to make the child suffer, I do believe that you should take the doctor's advice, rather than it shouldn't have to go through court. It's the same as any other like medical procedure. You take the doctor's advice for face value because they went to 10 years in medical school for that kind of choice. You know what I mean? I think it is up to the doctors and the parents. I don't think it should have had to have gone to court.
Yes.
In that sense.
What was your personal experience with the British ANS?
The British what, sorry?
What was your personal experience on your healthcare?
On my healthcare? Like I said, it depends what you want out of your healthcare. I currently work at the moment, so I pay Social Security. So if I wasn't paying Social Security or national insurance, we call it here. We don't call it Social Security. If I wasn't paying national insurance, I'd be paying my health insurance, which would be cheaper. So in that sense, I think that I'm better off having paid healthcare because I'm already paying for my healthcare by paying for my national insurance. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
But then also the NHS, unfortunately, a lot of people don't like to admit it, but the NHS is ran really, really bad. Like paracetamol is the most common form of medicine in the UK, and you can go to the shop and buy a packet of paracetamol for about 18-19 pence. But then when you go to the doctors and the doctor prescribes you with paracetamol, it costs the government £8.50, which is ridiculous compared to how you can literally go to a convenience store and buy it for like 18-19 pence. So in that form, it's ran really bad because the government sucks with money. It always has done. No matter if you look at any government program in any country, it sucks. It can be done better. And unfortunately, when you haven't got any competition in the market, they can charge whatever they like. Like if I went to the NHS right now, if I went to the free healthcare and I asked them for some paracetamol, I could get that at the government's expense for £8.50, or I could just go to the convenience store and get it for 19 pence. But there are people out there that will just get it from the doctors just because they don't care about the fact that it costs £8.50 to the government. And there are a lot of people that come here as immigrants and tourists. Like, say if a person from America came here on holiday or vacation, whatever you want to call it, if they came here, they could go and see a GP for free, and then they could get a prescription for free, and then that'll be the taxpayer that pays for that. I mean, we are meant to be able to reclaim it, but health tourism, it's called health tourism in the UK. So anyone that comes into the country to use the healthcare system, that falls under health tourism. That cost my country £1.8 billion just last year, like just health tourism, just people coming into this country and using the healthcare system that they're not paying for. That cost £1.8 billion, and we only reclaimed £500 million of that back. The rest of it just dissipated into thin air.
I heard they stopped doing that. They actually are charging non-native patients. Actually, they're charging as twice as much, like 100%, 150% of it. They're not only paying for themselves, they're also paying for other patients also in the British ANS.
Yeah. Well, this is the thing. Like, if someone came here and they weren't able to pay for that healthcare, or say, if you go to the accident and emergency, the what do you call it in America? The ER. Do you know? We call it A&E. But if you go to the ER and you're a tourist, they don't ask you for any documentation. They don't ask you for anything. They'll just patch you up. Now, I think that's a stupid system, considering that the person that's using that healthcare isn't paying for it. I am a strong advocate of, if you're going to use something, you should be paying for it.
They act like I don't know what it's like in your country, but they act like a profit motive for healthcare is like a horrible motive. You know, the profit motive is probably the most honest motive out there, because they're incentivized to provide the best service possible. It's like, I've been asking people here in my country, and they seem like, yeah, they act like making money is a terrible incentive.
Well, this is the thing. Like, if you make money, you can fund research to stop diseases like the Charlie Gard, whatever. You can stop diseases like that happening, but it's not going to happen without money. Like, the incentive for money is the incentive for a cure. It's like malaria. Like, that costs governments a lot of money, whereas if you incentivized a lot of funding, like if you created more funding and you charged people for their healthcare, or you charged people for things that they use, you probably would be able to find a cure for malaria, or like abolish it from the earth completely. Like, unfortunately, everything costs money, and if you don't incentivize making money, you don't incentivize getting rid of the diseases in the first place.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point. I'd like to move on to the American healthcare system, because
Yeah, sure.
The thing about the American healthcare system is, to be objective, Americans don't really have a healthcare problem. The truth is about the American healthcare system, it's just expensive. It's due to Medicaid and Medicare and Obamacare.
Yeah,
making it more expensive. Any thoughts on that, my friend?
yeah. Well, I'm not. I'll have to admit, I know more about British healthcare than American healthcare, but I do know there is a problem with a lot of people. They seem to think that no health insurance means you are going to die. Is it true that in America, if you say have a car accident, or if you need medical assistance, they're not going to charge you before they help you. They're going to help you, and then they'll charge you after, right?
Yeah, they do that.
See, a lot of people in my country are under the misconception that if you don't have health insurance in America, you are literally living on a knife edge. If anything happens to you, that's it. It's game over.
They do charge people, but there's also stories about people going bankrupt, receiving medical treatment.
Right.
Yeah.
But then you've got people going bankrupt because they're paying so much to the government. Like, I don't know what the tax rate in America is, but in England, if you earn over £150,000, you're charged nearly half. You're taxed nearly half of your earnings, which I think is absolutely a ridiculous amount to be taxed. 45%, if you're earning that much, goes on tax, which I think is way too high. But I think with the American system, I do think it does need looking into. But then what people need to realise is that making it free does not make it more available. Like, you can look at South Africa, for example. They used to have a paid healthcare system, and then their quality was really high, and then they made it free for everyone, and its availability and free went high, but then its quality dropped, and then they had a lot more like premature deaths, and they had a lot more Like, they had a lot more going wrong for them just because they made their healthcare free. So making it a right, making it free, doesn't make it better. It doesn't make it available for everyone.
Yeah, yeah. That's the thing is like there's also like there's also a misconception here that they're in America. People think people, at least I talk to, you think the healthcare quality will actually increase when we make it free. Like no, that's
Yeah, it just because, like, this is the thing people need to realize. I think. Oh, have you ever watched that debate with Chunk Yogurt? You know, the Young Turks. Have you ever watched the debate between him and Ben Shapiro?
yeah. I watched it. It was amazing.
Right. There's a quote from Ben Shapiro in that which explains it perfectly, and it goes, there's three things that you can have in a healthcare system: affordability, universality, and availability, or no, quality. So quality, affordability, and universality. And a healthcare system can only have two of them three things. It can never have all three. So in America right now, you've got quality, because it is a really it is really good for a healthcare system that you have. The healthcare that you receive is a very good healthcare system to have. But it's not universal. Whereas in England, it's universal. It's the quality is dropping dramatically, but that's because we're constantly changing governments, and but the affordability is not there. It costs a ridiculous amount to function, having that healthcare system. But I think Ben Shapiro, that quote from Ben Shapiro literally hit the nail on the head. I think that was a perfect way to explain it.
Yeah. Also, man, I forgot what I was gonna ask. Just the thing is like, is there any deregulated things in the British healthcare system that is actually of high quality?
So again, sorry, is there any what?
Is there anything private about the British healthcare system that the government doesn't control?
Contrary to popular belief, the dental system is very good.
Oh,
Yeah,
so,
that's privatized. So
oh,
if I needed to go to if I needed to go, unless it's privatized if you have a job. So if you have a job, you have to pay for your dental healthcare. If you're jobless, it's free. Same with prescriptions as well. If you have a job, any prescription will cost you £8.50. Whereas if you haven't got a job, it's free. Like, a lot of people in England and Great Britain, what a lot of people will do is, say if they need a dental procedure that will cost thousands of pounds, they'll quit their job, they'll go and get the healthcare they need for free, and then they'll go and find another job.
there goes the myth about the British having bad teeth.
Yeah, well, there you go. But like, there's that. So I don't know. I can go into more detail about the privatized healthcare in England if you want, or in Britain.
Yeah. Please do, because I want to know the difference in quality between the privatization
Okay,
of healthcare.
so what happened was a prime minister, who is our version of a president, I guess. Our prime minister in 1940, I don't know, just after the war, just after the Second World War, was Clement Attlee. His name was the Prime Minister Attlee. He was a left-wing socialist, and he borrowed $1 billion from America, a small loan of $1 billion, to socialize everything in the UK. He socialized the rail system. He created our free healthcare system. Soon after, he had to, due to austerity, due to the fact that we had to cut government spending, soon after he had to give up dentistry, and he had to give up prescription medication. So that had to go straight back into privatized healthcare, because our economy plummeted because of all this. Cost of living went up, housing went up, like housing problems went up. He was supposed to create an abundance of houses, because we got bombed during World War II, and a lot of our houses like fell to dust, and we lost a lot of houses during World War II. He was meant to create a lot more of a housing system, and that just created slums and ghettos and stuff. So what happened was he had to privatize dental, and he had to privatize prescription medication, which then made the quality of that go up, but it didn't make it universal, and it made it less available for everyone. But it worked. So yeah, unfortunately, we did healthcare like that.
Yeah, I just remember a question. What is the Tories doing? The party of Margaret Thatcher is trying to fix your healthcare system.
Okay, so with the Tories, they're seen as evil people. Like, I voted for the Tories. I voted for the Conservatives. And the moment you say that to someone in Britain, they'll roll their eyes at you. They'll think that, like, being a working class person and voting Conservative is an oxymoron to them. You can't. I'm a working class person. Contrary to the popular belief of being the smug capitalist, I'm a working class person. I voted right-wing Conservative because I voted for them on the basis of immigration. That was my view on voting for them, because we currently have a refugee crisis in America, in Europe. We have a refugee crisis. We have a lot of people coming over from Syria. Now, one of the reasons that I voted Conservative was because the opposite of the Conservatives is the Labour government, which is the left-wing government, and they want open borders. They want anyone to be free to enter or leave the UK. Now, I always ask the question, how can you have open borders with free healthcare during a refugee crisis? Because all that's going to happen is we're going to get an influx of refugees that haven't got a job, use the healthcare system, and it's going to be everyone here that pays for it.
Yeah, what's going to lead to is a shortage.
Yeah, so what the Tories want to do is they want to regulate the borders more securely. They want to stop as much refugees coming in, because they're just using the healthcare system and not paying back into it, which is in the long run is just going to make it, it's just going to crumble it. It's just going to strangle it, so we can't even use it as citizens anymore, even though we're paying for it. So what the Tories want to do is the Tories are putting more money into the NHS. People seem to think that they want to get rid of the NHS. They don't. They just want to privatise little sectors that aren't used by everyday British people, so that you can still go into the A&E and get looked after, or the ER and get looked after. But it's just it is what it is. But the unfortunate thing with my government is another thing will pop up next week where it will throw the attention away from the important situations. But that's unfortunately British politics for you.
I think that's not so much your government in particular as much as popular sovereignty in general.
What do you mean by popular sovereignty?
Say again?
What do you mean by popular sovereignty?
That's just another way of saying pseudo-democracy. Not quite democracy, representative democracy, that sort of thing.
It is democracy. I do live in a democratic country.
I'm not too familiar with Britain, but just with that kind of governing, that's the kind of issue you run into where the people kind of focus on one new thing every week and nothing really gets resolved. Yeah,
that is a big problem with the fact that a prime minister can't do anything without the vote, there's 650 members of parliament in the UK, and that's each member of parliament controls what we call a constituency, which is kind of like an American state in itself. It has its own council. So the UK is split up to 650. It's split into 650 constituencies that each have an MP that gets voted for by people in that constituency. So I live in a constituency, and when I go to vote, I vote. No one votes for the Prime Minister. You only vote for the Member of Parliament. So I voted, and I voted for my Member of Parliament to go and sit in the chair that would be my constituency's chair in the Houses of Parliament, who represents the people that live from where I live in the UK. Does that make sense?
Yeah, a representative democracy.
Yeah, and then the person that has the party that has the majority of seats, so the person that gets the majority of the seats out of them 650, creates the government, that creates the official government, and then out of the people that get voted in from that government, one of them people will also become the prime minister. So every prime minister is still a member of parliament for their constituency.
That's very interesting.
Is Theresa May anything? What did Theresa May, your current prime minister, do anything about the healthcare in your country?
Well, she hasn't been prime minister for that long, but she keeps on. So it's only, usually what happens is the first year is promises of what they plan to do. So things that they had in their manifesto, things that like they said they do during the campaign run. She's focusing a lot on mental health at the moment. So she's saying she's going to put more money into the mental health system, and she's saying she's going to give more to each of the hospitals that are in certain constituencies and stuff like that. But like nothing's actually happened at the moment. It's still just run how it was during the last election.
So just like all other political systems, a lot of promises and nothing actually happens. Got it. I understand now.
Pretty much. I am very all for low government, because I feel like if it was privatized, it would have been fixed by now. This is the problem with having a representative government.
And this is a problem that socialism, this is the problem of freedom. This is the problem of socialism. That problem is more freedom that always costing more in the long run. So
this is why socialism only works under a dictatorship, because for socialism to work, they need to make quick and rash decisions. That doesn't happen under a democracy.
Yes.
Because if I say if I was a socialist like dictator, I could turn around and say, okay, it is blatantly a good thing for my country right now if I pump more money into mental health, into the mental health sector of the medical the medical system. But now, having a representative democracy, I now have to stand up in front of 649 people, and I have to say, I now think that the best thing for the government is to put more money into the medical sector. Now, if that doesn't get a majority vote, which 9 times out of 10, people will vote against the prime minister just because they're on the opposite party and they want to look good to their own party. So if I'm part of the Scottish National Party, or if I'm part of the United Kingdom Independence Party, or if I'm part of the Labour Party, I'm going to vote against anything the Prime Minister wants to do on the Conservative Party, because then that will make them look bad if they don't fix that problem. Which doesn't work under socialism, because if a socialistic leader needs to do anything, they can't keep on relying on a vote from other people. They need to act there and then. That, like, during a natural disaster or something like that, they can't just rely on people's votes.
Yeah, that just sounds like more pork barreling to me.
The promise of free stuff is always alluring. Just need to pump more money into it and pretend where some reason that money has magical powers can fix the problem.
Yeah, well, they seem to, like, Margaret Thatcher said it beautifully. She said socialism's okay until the money runs out.
I like that.
And once there's no money, there's no wealth to redistribute, because that's the problem with socialism. It doesn't create money. It stagnates the economy. It makes the economy so that it's not producing anything worthwhile. The greatest thing about a free market is the fact that there's competition to be building better products. It's like if the NHS, say my health service, if they were using in their hospitals an X-ray machine that was affordable, but no one can go to, say, another company to buy a better X-ray machine, we're going to be using X-ray machines from the 90s because there's no competition. Now, say if I lived in a country where there was private healthcare, and then a person turned around to me and said, okay, I've just invented this new X-ray machine. It's going to cost you a bit of money right now, but in 10 years, you'd have made a profit. compared to the X-ray machine you're using now, and it's safer for the environment or some bullshit like that. I don't know. I'm going to want to go for the X-ray machine that's going to save me money in the long run. But unfortunately, that's not how the government works, because in 5 years, there'll be a new government.
Yeah, this is why I was kind of doubtful of the Soviet healthcare system.
I'm not going to lie, I know nothing about the Soviet healthcare system because I know how socialism works, and I don't really need to look into the communistic version of healthcare systems, because it just, if even on pen and paper, it sounds absurd. Like it really does. Like there's no way that you could have everyone earning the exact same amount of money and expect everyone to pay into the same healthcare system, even though they're not getting the same results out of it. It just does not make sense.
No.
So all you guys. Oh, okay, you go.
I was speaking to a Russian earlier in the week, and he said that, well, the current state of Russia have a public and private healthcare system. He said the public health care is terrible. Just people are dying. The waiting rooms, and he said he works for a company that actually pays for his insurance, paid for. He said the private healthcare is actually better, actually has quality. I'd like to mention that.
That's very interesting. But while you guys were discussing this, I looked up mental health rates in the UK.
Right.
And based on 35-second Google search, it's not particularly any higher than the rest of the world, especially the rest of the West. So it looks like it's just a big distraction.
This is the thing, because it was said during an election campaign, like they'll hear one party say something and they'll think, wow, that's going to sound really good to the public. I'm going to run with that and make it sound better. So the Labour Party say will turn around and they'll go, oh, we're going to pump £1 billion into the mental health sector. And then the Conservatives are going to think, wow, that's going to win them a lot of votes. There's a lot of people that have mental health issues in the UK. So I'm going to go and say, I'm going to pump 1.2 billion into the mental health care system, and I'm going to one-up them. That's literally how it works. It's tit for tat.
Just more identity politics.
Yeah, it's not so much identity politics, because people seem to fall in love with the personality and not the policy of the politicians. Like Jeremy Corbyn, who's the left-wing leader of the Labour Party, over here in the UK, personality-wise, he seems a lot more favourable, because he wears a scruffy shirt and he's constantly against rich people, and he says rich people are horrible. And obviously there's more poor people in Britain than there are rich people. So as a poor person, you're going to turn around and think, oh, wait a minute, he's speaking my language. He's talking for the common man. We're going to vote for him. But then they don't realise that he's going to open the borders, he's going to allow refugees to come here, use the free healthcare system, and he hasn't even addressed it in his manifesto. Whereas you've got the Conservative, Theresa May, who's a proper like, oh hello darling, one does not, she's like that kind of British person. No one relates to her. Like I don't relate to her, and I voted for her, but I don't vote for the personality. I vote for the policy. I know that she's like, it's even like, all right, let me put it to you like this. Jeremy Corbyn, who is the favourable leader of the Labour Party and who got over 1 million votes in the UK, which is a lot of votes. He got a big margin of the votes. He got 2 E's in his A levels. He didn't even pass university. He hasn't got a university degree. He has no higher education.
Well, to be fair, I don't either, so I can't really down the guy for that.
No, I know, but I don't think you're going to be running for president anytime soon.
Yeah, fair point.
All right. All our presidents are college educated.
But this is what I mean. Like he only finished, like he only finished our version of high school, did another year of education on top of that, failed it, and then went to Jamaica for 2 years and volunteered. Now, am I going to vote for that person, or am I going to vote for a person that finished her education, albeit it was in geography, which I don't know how the fuck, like, I don't even know what that has to do with politics. But this is the point, is that people fall in love with the personality. They see a person scruffy saying, fuck the rich people, we don't need them, we're the working people, we own everything. They're going to vote. That's where the popularity lies. And that's the problem. People need to read the manifestos, they need to see the policies, and they need to, like, politics is very personal. Like, I could be voting for a reason that no one else would be voting for, but that vote means more to me than someone else's. And they need to realize that. They need to not fall in love with a man, and they need to fall in love with the idea of what that man is actually trying to do.
And from what I hear, fall in love with men is pretty popular in Britain right now.
Well, you've got this whole
That was a gay joke, man. I'm just kidding with you.
No, that's actually a thing. Like, you've got like this whole identity, like you know, the gender thing.
More degeneracy, great.
Yeah, you've got like this Apache helicopter kind of nonsense. Like, I don't know.
You're
Like,
gonna bring that to the comment section.
I don't know. I mean, it's how I see it is you can call yourself whatever you like. If you want to identify as a demigod, or if you want to identify as like a gender fluid child of Jesus, then I don't care. But if you start turning around to me and saying I have to say, it's like pronouns. If I say he or she, that's fine. But then now people want to be called like Z, like Z-E.
Or Zer. My favorite Zer.
Zer. What the fuck is Zer? Like, that it's a load of bollocks. Like,
and they're trying to create new titles.
Going back on politics, it seems like America is a little bit opposite of the UK. Just a little bit.
It's not the opposite. It's just the UK is America 5 years ago.
America 5 years ago.
Imagine what it was like to live in America 5 years ago, and then just constantly have that thought. So even like a year from now, constantly have the thought. 5 years ago is what it's like to live in Britain right now. Like, that's literally what it is. We just follow you. Like, you're always on the TV over here. You're always on the television. So, like, we still watch episodes of Friends on mainstream TV here.
Oh, do you still have Lost? Have you guys finished Lost yet?
I watched the first season of Lost, and then apparently, like, we get everything like a year late over here. So I watched the first season of Lost, and then my Twitter feed blew up and said, apparently they all died. And then I'm like, well, I'm not going to fucking carry on watching that now, am I?
It's not that they all died. It's that they were all dead from the beginning.
Yeah, they all died in the airplane crash, and then half of them go, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, wait, that's confusing. Wait.
It is. They didn't plan the ending from the beginning. They had no idea what they were doing. It was just a mess.
Oh yeah, definitely. But this is the thing, like, the UK is America 5 years ago. So this whole gender studies bullshit came up a few years ago in America, and it's only recently just started cropping up in England and in the UK. It started to become a big thing here, because now people are like, oh, you're denying me of my human existence because you're refusing to call me whatever I wish you to call me. And I'm like, okay, then I'm going to identify as a 1960s slave owner. Does that make me does that make me a 1960s slave owner? No, it doesn't. But,
as Ben Shapiro once said, I'm not denying your humanity. I just don't believe you're the gender that you're subscribed to.
Yeah, you are not the gender you subscribe to be. You can call yourself whatever you like. That is your humanity. Your humanity is to be left alone. Nowhere in the 30 basic human rights does it state that you have the obligation to tell me what I should call you. The 30 basic human rights all revolve around being left alone. You have the right to be left alone and do what you want to do, as long as it doesn't infringe on someone else's right to be left alone.
I think you just debunked the claim that healthcare is a right.
Yeah, you just
This is
single-handedly did that. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But this is the thing, like, you have the right to be left alone and do what you want to do. That's the only right you have. No one should be able to take that away from you. If I wanted to walk around my house naked for the next 48 hours, I have the right to do that. But I don't have the right to turn around and to say to someone, you are now going to call me this, because then that's infringing on their right to be left alone.
Yeah, it's very interesting. You got to think, how far are they willing to go with this? Is it going to be legislature soon? Well, I mean, it already is in Canada.
The one thing that doesn't get into my head about the whole American thing is that liberals, like left-wing people in America, seem to think that Islamic fundamentalism is freedom. I've heard of that a lot. Like, they think that, like, they're all for gender equality and feminism, and they're all for this, and then they're all for minorities, and they're all like, oh, you should respect everyone equally. And I'm like, I do respect everyone equally. If a white person is being a prick, I'm going to call that white person a prick. But then if I turn around and say a black person is being a prick, now you're going to call me racist for that. And I don't think that's, I don't think that adds up to me. Like, I will call someone a prick on the basis of them being a prick.
Oh, speaking of that, I like to recommend a YouTube channel. You ever heard of Tommy Sotomayor?
Say again?
You ever heard of Tommy Sotomayor?
No.
I recommend him. He's a pretty funny guy. He does expose the issues of the African American communities.
Well, back to the Muslim thing. That's very interesting that you mentioned that, because the official Facebook of, I think it's the American Libertarian Party.
Right.
They recently posted some kind of, it was either a document or a manifesto, maybe it was just an article, I can't remember, about how somehow Sharia law perfectly aligns with the American Libertarian Party's goals and aspirations.
What?
Somehow.
Wait, libertarian means no government, right?
Libertarian means the absolute minimum. Anarchist means no government.
Okay, yeah. So libertarian means a minimum of government, but it takes a government to enforce Sharia law.
Right. That it blew up on Twitter. I can't remember if it was a Twitter or Facebook post, but everyone was kind of in a stir about it.
I have no idea why they've done that.
I blame Gary Johnson.
They're also majorly for climate change reform, and I think socialized healthcare too.
Yeah, Blake Gary Johnson.
This is why I don't affiliate with any party. I class myself as a right-wing, conservative, libertarian. That is what I am. I think that everyone should be left alone to do what they want, and I think that the only thing government should be there to do is to sustain life and liberty. That's it. The government should only help me with my freedom and to be left alone.
Personally, I'm closer to, an anarchist. I believe that the government, its existence itself, is restricting some person somewhere's right to life and liberty, but that's just my own opinion.
Okay. I would say that
I just lost all faith in the government. I think it should be abolished.
I don't think it should be abolished. I just think it should be minimalized. I think that it should only be there for, like, say, police and fire trucks and basic healthcare, to make sure basic healthcare is there, and then people can pay for it after. I don't think anyone should die due to lack of healthcare. I do think that it should, and I also don't think the bill should be picked up by someone else.
Yeah.
So you're saying that a doctor's visit or something should be free?
No, emergency. So say if I get hit by a car, I don't think I should die if I don't have health insurance. I think I should, or if I get a terminal illness or something, I think I should be looked after. And then I think that if you haven't got health insurance, then it should be, I should have to foot the bill after I get fixed. I don't think anyone should be left to die due to lack of insurance.
I agree with that, but I think it should be more like you set up some kind of down payment plan or something with the hospital after you receive the treatment.
Yeah, definitely. Like how student loans work. No,
but
like you'll never get a bailiff come to your house for a student loan. I don't think you should have a bailiff come to your house for medical bills. I think that if you are earning a certain amount of money, then you can start paying your medical bills back. But then you've got the whole like pre-existing conditions, and you've got that situation. But then pre-existing conditions fall under your parents' healthcare plan. So if I was to have a child, my healthcare would cover that child. If I knew my wife got pregnant, I would then change my medical insurance to make sure my baby was on my insurance.
Yeah, there's a degree of, self-responsibility to that. And there's also just a degree to where you kind of have to shrug your shoulders and say, we'll pay for it afterwards in incremental payments.
Yeah, definitely. I don't think that... See, a lot of people in Britain, I know this for a fact, I am probably in the 5% of people that think that healthcare, the NHS here should only be for the accident and emergency, the ER, the emergency room. I think that the healthcare system should only be for the emergency room. It shouldn't be for, like there was this story that happened, actually, this explains it perfectly. A girl, this was a few years ago, a teenage girl, I think she was 18 or 19, had depression. And she had depression because she didn't like the way she looked. Now, the NHS paid for her to get a boob job.
Oh, I heard about that.
Yeah. Now you imagine hearing that, if you imagine waking up to the news and seeing, oh, your tax money, the money you pay towards the government has been paid for someone to get bigger tits. I don't agree with that. That is just absolutely stupid.
Now, like, I kind of don't see why the NHS needs to be involved in your healthcare, because a person could just arrange some kind of down payment system with the hospital after they've received the treatment.
Yeah, definitely. But then you've got people that like have lifelong disabilities that can never work and stuff like that. But that's where I think charity comes in, because even with the Charlie Gard case, they raised £2 million. Now, if one kid can raise £2 million, I'm pretty sure, rare mental illnesses are rare rare illnesses are rare for a reason. They don't come around every day. So I think that through charity, they could be well paid for.
Yeah, globally, there's over $1.4 billion raised for just people with mental illnesses and handicaps alone. And that's with people being taxed. Well,
this is the thing. Like, this is why it doesn't work, because you can never tax an adequate amount, because next year there could be a rise in mental health, which means there's a rise in tax. Whereas if it private charity runs a lot more efficiently than general charity of a government, or forced charity of a government, because the thing the left wing likes to see, they revere themselves as being morally good, because they are all for this charitable taxation, whereas they don't realise that it loses all charitable meaning when it's forced. I'm not giving my tax because I'm generous. I'm giving my tax because if I don't, the government will come to my door and take me to jail.
Yeah,
and throw you in a cage.
It takes away all of their moral high ground.
Yeah, because they seem to be like, oh, well, I don't want children to die, and I don't want people to have to pay for their healthcare. I want it to be free for everyone, and we're just going to skip and hold hands and have a drum circle. And I'm like, that's not.
And the evil conservatives be like, we just believe that people have the right to access health care, but we just want people to pay for it on their own.
Yeah, because then it's a lot more manageable as well. Because I will happily help my friend pay for any mental illness or anything they have. That's just me though. But I'm not going to pay for someone's healthcare if they live halfway across the country and I've never seen them before in my life. So I think there should be charity implemented, but I don't think that it should be forced charity through taxation, because then it's not called charity, because it's forced. You can't force charity on people.
I completely agree.
And it does lead to a poor quality of care anyway.
Yeah, because then when you've got people like, if I was to turn around and give my money to a charity that helps, like, say, people with HIV, and then that charity gave some of their money to help an 18-year-old get a boob job, that charity will be held accountable, and people will be asking them, why the hell have you done that when we wanted that to go to people with HIV? Now with the NHS, I don't mind having a free healthcare system if no one abused it like that, and if the only people using it were the people paying into the pot, or would eventually be paying into the pot when they get a job when they're old enough.
You see, on paper that sounds great, but in reality that's never going to work. You're always going to have people mooching off the system.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like you've always got people that remain their whole life unemployed. Like people here,
like Jeremy Corbyn.
People here seem to go, oh well, if we didn't have the NHS, it would be like Breaking Bad, and I'm like, well, no, it wouldn't. Like I've genuinely had people use that argument against me. They've turned around to me and they've gone, have you watched Breaking Bad? And I'm like, no.
How does a TV show count for an argument?
I'm not there, but then I turn around and I could say like, well, we've got one of the biggest charities in the UK is cancer research, and they would probably happily pay for if we put the money that we put into the NHS into the cancer research charity, they would have probably a cure for cancer by now.
Actually, Texas is I can't remember if it's nationwide or worldwide. There's a hospital in Texas employing over 6,000 people solely on charity for the sake of researching cancer.
I have actually heard about that. I think it might have popped into my news feed or something, but I've got a fair few friends from Texas. Online, but yeah, I have heard about that, and I think if that is a prime example of as to why that definitely would work, because when people use examples, let's say if people use examples and it's a city, like people like to say that the healthcare system in somewhere like I don't know, like the Vatican City or some bullshit like that, and they're like, oh, it's really good there, and I'm like, yeah, but that's like 1,000 people. Do you know what I mean? And it just doesn't work. Like, but with a place like Texas, I think Texas has more of a population than the UK. So if you can turn around and say there's a hospital in Texas that has more of a population than the UK, and there it's solely run on charity and it has 6,000 employees, why would that not work here?
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I don't know the population comparisons, but Texas has 4 times the land mass of the UK, and it's very densely populated.
Oh no, yeah, it is massive. I think you could fit. I wouldn't say that you could have. I'm not sure about the landmass. I know it's got a hefty population though.
Yeah, it's massive.
Hang on, I'm googling it.
Hey, do you support Ted Cruz in the 2016 election, voluntary consumer?
I did for a while. It was kind of before I became, the voluntarist consumer. I was still kind of a statist, and I agree with just about everything he said, and then he lost.
Okay, Texas roughly has about half of the population of the UK.
Oh, really? That's...
Yeah.
Huh.
28 million.
Oh, that's odd.
Yeah, so they have 28 million, and I think we have something like 65 million.
Huh. I thought it was more than that. Well,
so did I. Oh well.
Oh well, for that point.
Yeah, we have 65.64 million, so about half. But it's still a prime example. It's not a city in the middle of nowhere. It's a prime example that can happen.
Yeah, I think my sister's actually trying to get a job there as we speak.
Oh, okay. And then your sister would actually be like paid through charity, not through forced charity.
Yeah, it would be genuinely voluntary.
It's like I really will never understand the whole forced charitable, like the moral high ground of the left, the fake moral high ground of the left, the we are better because we want to implement things that help everyone, and they just don't understand that it just doesn't work like that. Like you can't, it doesn't make it available. That's why I use South Africa as an example as to why that doesn't happen, because they implemented free healthcare and it made it less available. Like people started dying because of lack of healthcare, even though it was made free.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, this is the best way I like to phrase it. They think that the ends justify the means when they don't realize that the means affect the ends significantly.
That's a good way of putting it. Because yeah, it's not really an end though, because it's never going to end. This is the problem. Like there is no ends, or there's means. Like you will have to constantly like change the healthcare system, and I agree with that. But I don't think that there's never going to be an end to the need of healthcare. Everyone's always going to need healthcare, and making it paid for by the working people and then making it available for everyone doesn't make it available to everyone. And that's what they need. That is the one thing that they need to know, because this is why charity works best for the healthcare system, because then people are voluntary giving, and they would, I think that if you had it charitable, you would see a massive increase in funding towards the places that need the funding.
Yeah, it would kind of, in the same way that capitalism creates a division of labor, it would also create an equal division of resources as needed.
Yeah, because it's supply and demand. Like if a charity was to give out an appeal saying, "Oh, we haven't got any money anymore, we need money," they're going to see an increase in money. Like they're going to see people giving them more money. There's never going to be a lack of like charity. Like charity just helps the people that are in problem, that have a problem, whereas whereas a free healthcare system helps people even if they don't have a problem.
Yeah, it kind of incentivizes people to create a problem.
Yeah, because if I turn around and I said, say, if I wanted a day off work, I could go to the GP right now, get a sick note, because I think it's every time you go to the GP, they charge the government something like £500 for each visit. See, I wouldn't quote me on that, but it is a stupidly high number.
£500. That's a pound is worth 3 times an American dollar. So that's $1,500.
I think £1 is something like 80 cents.
Oh, it dropped.
Yeah, because of Brexit.
Oh, right. I completely forgot.
Brexit, eh?
Brexit. See, we could talk about Brexit if you want, because this one's a thing that really fucking pisses me off.
Okay, let's talk about Brexit.
I want before we talk about Brexit. Sorry, but I want to bring back something you said earlier. That one of the things you consider makes a government necessary is the police force.
Right.
Well, Mr. Dapperton loves using this clip. He uses it every chance he can get. But there's a ton of instances where private police forces, patrolling areas, is actually 4 times as effective and as the regular, state-provided police, and can usually dispatch more officers for longer.
The problem with private police is it can very quickly become a militia. Like very quickly. If a police force worked for the government, they would work for the government that's in power, regardless of what that government was. Whereas if a private person, this is why you get military coups, and you get things like in Ankara, in Turkey. Their military is right now fighting their government because they found out that their military had more firepower than the government. I think that with private policing, it becomes very, very, very quickly a militia, because if I found out that I have more power than the government, I'm going to want to rise over the government. This is what happened with Colonel Gaddafi. So I don't think private policing, it may be more efficient, but it's a lot more dangerous if it goes wrong.
I can kind of see that concern. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I can see that. Yeah. So back to Brexit. I just wanted to bring up that point for a second.
That's fine. What there is nothing good about Brexit. Like, regardless of what government in Britain was in power, we're gonna get shit on. The only problem is that Brexit, the European Union is shit. Like, the European Union,
socialism at its best.
they're not. It's not a democracy.
It really isn't.
Like, there's no elected leader in the European Union. No one elects a leader in the European Union. It wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't even be fair to elect a leader in the European Union, because what's going to happen is that places like Germany, why, if I was a German, why would I not vote for a German leader in the European Union?
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people talking about, they think the European Union is some kind of cover up for a massive German expansion.
This is the problem, is that because the European Union, it's not democratic, but it wouldn't work even if it was democratic, because you can't have a voting system when there are borders in place. Because as a British person, I know right now, I can tell you for a fact that I would vote for the British leader, or the British candidate to become the president of. It's not even a president; it's the president of the European Commission, I think they call it. It's Donald Tusk is the. I don't know how it works, if I'm honest. There's four leaders. There's not just one leader. There's four. One of them is seen as having more power, which is Donald Tusk, who I think is leader of the European Commission. I don't know how it fully works, if I'm honest, but the problem is that even if it was democratic, people are only going to. It's like the Eurovision Song Contest. People are only going to vote for the country they reside in, because they feel like the leader from their own country is going to help their country more than, say, someone from Poland.
Yeah, that's completely, a normal reaction. I think, if a poll is looking at it, like you said, a poll would see another poll as having more interest in the Polish well-being. But in reality, all you're doing is selecting someone with the exact same goals and values. They're all the same up there.
Yeah, and the only problem is one of the tenets of the European Union is that of the free movement. So the only problem with this is that different countries have different immigration policies. So in Germany, if I'm a refugee and I go to Germany, I would find it easy to get a German citizenship. Now I have a German citizenship. I am now free to move anywhere in the European Union. So I can go to Britain, like my country. So if I was a Syrian refugee, I'd go to the country that it's the easiest to get a citizenship in. Like, I'd go to Germany, and then I'd turn around and go, well, now I'm a German citizen, I can now go to the UK.
Yeah, it's a very easily exploited system. I'm not advocating for more bureaucracy here, but I don't think it would go amiss.
Yeah, definitely. I think border control is a big issue in Europe at the moment. Only because you can even see some of the videos along the motorway, the highway in Calais, which is the port city to Great Britain. There's a massive refugee camp there. They even have like pop-up mosques and stuff. And it just they are literally jumping on the back of trucks in their thousands. Like, believe me, you can just.
I have seen videos of that, but you reminded me, in Venice, it's either Venice or Rome. I always get my Italian cities confused. But in Venice or Rome, they made it illegal to say Allahu Akbar in public.
Yeah, not in the public square. In the public square. That caused a massive uproar. But what you've got to realise is no sane person is just going to go and scream Allahu Akbar. Like, say if the shoe was on the other foot and the Christians were screaming God is great before they blow themselves up, literally every single time there's a video of a bunch of Arabs shooting at a helicopter, they are all screaming Allahu Akbar. Now, if the shoe was on the other foot and it was a bunch of Christians, every single video you see shouting God is great, they'd have done the same thing for the Christians. They'd have turned around and said, if anyone screams God is great in the middle of this square, you are going to get shot.
They use Voluntarist.
But this is the problem. Like, why would you go into the middle of a public square of a country that's had thousands of terrorist attacks and scream what they scream before you're about to blow yourself up?
Yeah, it's kind of tipping your hand, isn't it?
It's the same with that Linda Salsaw, whatever her name is. Like, she called for
She's
jihad.
the worst.
She called for jihad, and she knew like I saw this this terrorist sympathizer. I saw him on CNN, and he was saying, "Oh, she wants to take it back. It means struggle for freedom." And then if you look at that video, she is not using it in that context. She's not using it. We need to just turn around and say we need to claim jihad against the president of America, against the president of the country you live in. That's a bit of a backwards philosophy. That's not even helping that's not even helping the party you affiliate with. She's not helping any Muslim by doing that.
Yeah, I'm genuinely convinced she's actively working against the people she's claiming to help. Kind of like a Boston Antifa thing, because this woman cannot be serious.
This
But
is the
how
thing.
can you be a feminist and Muslim?
This is the thing. Like, even with the Boston Antifa, like that, they aren't helping the cause that they claim to be part of. They are going around. They are like, it's even on my news. Like, this is the problem. Like, this stuff is on my news at the moment in the UK. Like, you just see like these people like burning cars, and it's like, oh, we're fighting fascism, and then you're like, well, how are you doing that? By being fascist. And it's absolutely stupid. Like, it's counterproductive. Like, why not go out and say, why not? Like, okay, let me put it to you like this.
Even the communists don't like Antifa.
This is the point. Like, this is the perfect reason, like, example I can give you of this, is that in my country, I'm not going to dox myself, but in my city, what happened was we had a lot of we call them EDL. They're the heavily right wing anti-Muslim protest group in England. Now, we don't have a massive Antifa following over here. So what happened was they came to my city and they marched and they held flags and they held massive crosses of Jesus and stuff like that, saying we don't want these Muslims blowing themselves up in our school playgrounds and all that. Now, they had no resistance. There was no one there to throw rocks at them and that. What happened was all of the imams in my city, all of the mosque leaders, they gathered round and they had a tea and crumpet party. And that right there is perfect evidence of a peaceful protest.
See,
because
but
the British people. Sorry, go on.
I think you misunderstood me. I was referring to a specific YouTube channel called Boston Antifa, who were trolls. They were faking being Antifa to make the whole movement.
I thought you were on about the actual Antifa in Boston.
No. I was referring to the website. You know, what I was saying was that the woman saying we should declare jihad on Trump, I'm genuinely convinced that she's like in that same vein. She's trolling to make the whole movement seem worse. You could not be serious.
Yeah. She just, I don't get what it is. I'd love to have a conversation with her. I'd love to turn around to her and say, why are you using provocative words and making your own affiliation seem bad? Because I'm a right-wing person, but I'm not going to go out and start turning around to people and saying, oh, like, what white people did this, that, and the other. White people are amazing. I'm going to turn around and go, oh no, we need to come together and we need to make our countries better and safer for the people that live in them. Like, I'm all for standing there and marching with a person, regardless of ethnicity or religious affiliation. If they call themselves British and they have a British passport, like they are actually British, if they're actually British and they call themselves British, I will stand next to them as much as a white British person, but I'm not going to turn around to them and start saying like, oh, you're not British, which is pretty much what she's doing. She's saying like, oh, what is with all this white guilt? Like, check your privilege and all that shit. Like, that annoys the fuck out of me. That does. Like, what reparations and stuff like that. Like, what people should pay for the slavery and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's insane the stuff that they can come up with. Like, if I'm not wrong, my major focus is history, but if I'm not wrong, we already paid reparations. America, I'm not sure if Britain did, because I'm not sure on British history, but America already paid reparations in the 1870s.
This is the point. Like, why are people that have never been slaves asking for money from people that have never been slave owners?
Yeah,
I don't know. America is weird like that.
But it's like, this is the all right. This is the thought process behind this, right? Does that mean this is what I ask from people? I've spoke to people that demand reparations from white people, because obviously we all know the British we haven't had the best history, right? I know that. But does that mean now that as a British person, I can now claim money off a Muslim person because the Muslims have enslaved the British in the past?
yeah. Can I claim that I'm related to the white people who were in the Muslim slave trade? That's still going on, by the way. And
Yes.
can I claim reparations for that?
This is the thing. Like, even do you know about the Barbary slave trade?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to be honest.
Right, the Barbary slave trade is basically the north coast of Africa during the African slave trade, when the British and the French and the Dutch and the Americans were in Africa creating them atrocities. The British had colonies along the north coast of Africa. Now, the Ottoman Empire. This was during the same time that we were all there during the start of the America, like during the start of the USA.
Yeah, it was colonization. I get it. I get the time period.
So the Barbary slave trade was basically the Ottoman Empire sailed across the northern coast of Africa, and they went along the ports and they enslaved the British. They went to Ireland, and they followed the curvature. They went to Spain, they went to Ireland, all the way up to Iceland, and they enslaved them all. Now, then they got a bit greedy, and they tried to enslave the Americans. Now, the Americans, being Americans, weren't taking it. So basically, what happened was Thomas Jefferson, who was an ambassador in America at the time, I think. He met with the ambassador for, and I can't remember the name of him, but he met with an ambassador for the Ottoman Empire in Paris. They had a conversation, and this is well documented. Thomas Jefferson turned around and said, "Why are you enslaving my people? We had nothing to do with the Crusades. Why are you coming to American soil and taking our people?" And he turned around, he held up the Quran and said, "You are part of the Western world, therefore we can do what we want." And then Thomas Jefferson turned around to him and said, "I'm taking that as a declaration of war. I will build a navy and I will level the Barbary coast." So he, like, rightly so, he went back to America. He created a navy. He sailed along the entirety of the north coast of Africa, and he destroyed every single Ottoman slave port. And people don't realize that it's not just black people that were enslaved. And Thomas Jefferson saved the British then, because we were going to be enslaved by the Ottoman Empire, and the Americans saved us for it.
That's very, very interesting, because from my understanding, and the revolutionary isn't my strongest area. I'm stronger in further back, earlier periods. But from my understanding, that's very out of character for Thomas Jefferson. He was. But then again, it does kind of make sense to a degree.
He was the president. Was he the second president?
Third.
Second VP, third president.
Okay, yeah, he was the third president. I think it might have been, he was an ambassador for something, and he was in London at the time, and he met with the ambassador for the Ottoman Empire in Paris. I'm going to Google it right now so I can give you some citations. So
that's a cool story.
I think that must have been during the Washington era, because the vice president's required in Congress to break the tie, and when you're president, you don't have time to be an ambassador in London, especially in that time period when traveling across the ocean took 3 months.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Background. Okay.
So it must have been during the Washington terms.
Okay. Background and overview. Barbary corsairs and crews from the North African Ottoman provinces. Blah 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 blah. 1.25 million Europeans were captured by Barbary pirates and sold as slaves between the 16th and 19th centuries. So, and then we go down. In March 1786, Thomas Jefferson and John Adams went to London to negotiate with Tripoli's envoy ambassador, Sidi Hadji, blah, 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 concerning the ground of the pretensions to make war upon nations who have done them no injury. The ambassador replied, "It is written here," and I quote, "This is what the ambassador for the Ottoman Empire said to Thomas Jefferson. It was written in their Quran that all nations which have not acknowledged the Prophet were sinners, whom it was the right and duty of the faithful to plunder and enslave, that every Mussulman who was slain in this warfare was sure to go to paradise. He said also that the man who was the first to board a vessel had one slave over and above his share, and that when they sprang to the deck of an enemy ship, every sailor had a dagger in each hand and a third in his mouth, which usually struck such terror into the foe as they cried out for quarter at once." That was the quote. That was a direct quote from Jefferson. Jefferson reported the conversation to Secretary of Foreign Affairs John Jay, who submitted the ambassador's comments and offer to Congress. Blah, 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 blah. Okay, declaration of war and naval blockade. Just before Jefferson's inauguration in 1801, Congress passed naval legislation that, among other things, provided for 6 frigates that shall be officered and manned as the President of the United States may direct, and he used them 6 galleons to then destroy the Barbary coast, apparently. So that's the backstory of it.
That's very interesting because 1786. That's when the Bill of Rights was enacted, if I'm not mistaken. So
Yeah,
that adds a lot of very odd context to a lot of things.
there you go. In 1802, in response to Jefferson's request for authority to deal with the pirates, Congress passed an act of protection of commerce and seamen on the United States against the Tripoli cruisers. So basically, it wasn't an invasion. It was to protect the American people from enslavement.
That's very interesting.
The US Navy went unchallenged on the sea, but still the question remained undecided. Jefferson pressed the issue the following year with an increase in military force and development of many of the Navy's best ships to the region throughout 1802.
Now, I just to add some context to this, at the time, the majority of the American military force was militias. It was just townsfolk who had a few too many guns. It was people bored patrolling their own towns. So the thought of a proper militia navy being raised at that time to protect trading vessels, that's borderline insane.
What, have you ever heard of the Battle of Tripoli?
I've heard of it.
That was that battle.
Oh, that's very interesting.
So so there's a bit of a history lesson, but that I'll use that as an example, as to say to people that maybe just because you claim a book to be perfect doesn't mean that people haven't used it for extraordinary reasons in the past, and just rightly so. The Americans and the British used the Bible as an excuse to enslave the Africans. The Muslims used the Quran as an excuse to enslave the British and the Americans. So no one has clean hands in this situation. So I don't think reparations are a good idea, because then you're just going to be passing money on to the person that's passing the money on to the person that's passing the money on to the person.
Yeah, history is bloody and dirty, man. Everyone's done something.
This is the problem. Like, I even turned around, I was having a conversation with an American about this, who rightly believes that there should be reparations for the Native Americans, or, you know, he wanted reparations for everyone done wrong. And I turned around to him and I said, rather than, like, I said, demanding money is such a cheap way to demanding money for something that's happened, for something as barbaric as slavery. It's the cheapest form of an apology. Why not create a government, or not even a government? Why not create say something within Black History class where we can look upon our past and not replicate it in the future. We're not going to just throw money at families that have had slaves in the past, because that's the cheapest form of an apology. Like
And that won't happen because they're destroying statues.
It's mad that they hate capitalism and they hate these supposed fat cats in the high seats. But then when something bad happens to them, they want them to be thrown money at them. They're not strippers. Do you know what I mean? They're not just going, oh, sorry, have some money. Let me make, look, I'm sorry, what, did you have a slave in your family 50, 100 years ago? Let me make it rain. Do you know what I mean? It's
yeah, and I mean, like, where do you draw the line? Because, like, white people have hated other white people for decades, centuries, millennia. Like,
oh, yeah, like the British enslaved the Irish.
It's not just that, like, the Italians, when they first came to America, at the time, the Irish were, like, the bottom rung. The Italians were seen as worse when they came over, and I'm part Italian. Do I deserve reparations? I'm part German.
Because everyone has been a slave, or everyone has history of enslavement, and everyone has history of slavery. It's a stupid notion that people should pay money to other people for that reason.
Well, I mean, it wasn't quite enslavement, but, you know, there were signs: no Jews, no Irish, no Italians.
Oh, yeah, and no dogs. In England, we had, during the IRA, do you know about the IRA? It's basically...
Oh, yeah, the independent... the independent...
the Irish Republican Army.
That's it.
Yeah, so basically, they weren't allowed any... I'm from Irish descent, so my nan and my granddad are both Irish, very Irish. And they weren't allowed to go into certain public places during the IRA fiasco. And I don't demand reparations from the British because I'm half English and I'm half Irish. So I'm going to be paying money and then giving it back. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, Ben Shapiro is right. Social justice is really evil because it's collectivist in nature.
Well, this is the thing.
All that's it's just a face for collectivism.
Yeah.
It always boils down is either collectivism or individualism.
I heard an excellent Ron Paul quote where he said that racism is just a very ugly form of collectivism. You're grouping people based on something they had no control over.
This is the thing.
Yeah.
Like that inherently makes things like Antifa racist, really, because they're turning around to people and saying, "Oh, sorry, if you're not like us, we're going to punch you in the face because we deem you a Nazi."
Yeah, you're white, you're instantly a Nazi until you prove otherwise.
I've heard this a lot, actually. It's like people say, "Oh, you're white, you don't get an opinion on racism,"
or like, "You're a male, you don't get an opinion on the abortion issue." It's just I had no control over this circumstance.
This is the problem. Like, if the child that's being aborted is a male, does that then give me a right to save that child's life?
Right. And like,
everyone has an opinion, but if you are part of I'll admit, I will hold my hands up now, that if you are, say, the person being segregated, if you are the person being attacked, you have a weighted opinion. You don't have, you don't not have an opinion just because you're not affected by it. Everyone has opinion on everything. Like, I don't need to go to the dentist tomorrow, but I still think that we shouldn't make dentistry free. Like, I have an opinion on that, but then someone that has, like, say, fucked up teeth, they have a weighted opinion. Like, they have, like, that they are actually going through it. But it's probably a bad analogy, but there's probably an analogy out there that works better. But you can see where I'm coming from.
Yeah. In case you don't know, the stereotype for England over here is that you all have horrible, horrible, horrible teeth.
Oh, I know the stereotype. There's stereotypes everywhere though. Like, there's a stereotype over here, like, genuinely, that all Americans are really fat, and I personally have never met a fat American.
As someone who frequents a Walmart and lives in Texas, I cannot say that's untrue.
I don't know, but I'm not going to say that literally YouTube. If you want to play stereotypes, YouTube the Jeremy Kyle show. That's our version of Jerry Springer, and not one person on that show has a good set of teeth. Like, I promise you, because it even blew up on Twitter once because there was a girl that went on there who had nice teeth.
Oh no!
And everyone was like, "What the fuck is going on?" Like. Like,
is it also true that over across the pond that you think America owns a bunch of guns?
a lot of people like. I don't think like. See, it depends who you ask on that one, because a lot of people seem to like either put Americans as like, because America is such a vast, like massive place. A person from New York could seem like they're from a different country than a person from California. Do you see what so I think it's more not an American stereotype. I think that it's a state stereotype. So if you ask a British person what they think a person from Texas is like, they'll think of like a cowboy or a person with a gun, or like, you know. And then if you ask someone from what's a person from California like, you think of like the blonde, like bikini. Oh my God, Brittany, you're such a slut, kind of, you know, that kind of shit.
That was a very excellent accent, actually. I'm very impressed.
And then, like, when you've got New York, you think of, like, Italian pizza eating. You fucking douchebag. You could, that kind of, like, you know what I mean?
Why are you nailing these accents?
Like, but that's what we see. Like, we don't have an American... We don't have an American... Because America is so big, we don't have an American stereotype. We have states. So I don't think anyone knows any other states other than California, New York, and Texas. I think they're the only three, because everywhere
That's
else
all that
is kind
really
of
matters,
molds.
honestly. But in America, we kind of have... We really have two stereotypes for the Brits. We have the upper Brit stereotype and the low-class stereotype.
Yeah, I've not heard of the low class. I know that you have the whole like, oh darling, kind of like, you know what I mean?
Like the low class is the kind of thing that you see in like Mary Poppins, you know, chimney sweeps.
The all right, governor.
Actually,
Yeah,
any thoughts on Emma Watson?
The what? Sorry.
Any thoughts on Emma Watson, the girl from Harry Potter?
What about her?
I just wonder your opinion on her.
My opinion. Well, she's a fucking feminist.
Yeah, kind of.
Oh, well, then she's not alright.
Yeah, she's a proper feminist.
I haven't heard of that. I didn't even recognize her name.
Hermione.
Oh.
Yeah, she's a proper. She's really good looking. Don't get me wrong. She's a good looking lass, but she's a fucking feminist.
I haven't heard of that. I haven't really been active since the hurricane, but yeah, I haven't heard of that.
Yeah, but I suppose that's stereotypes for you, I guess. It like, I don't think anyone in America knows anything outside of London, if I'm honest. Like, do you know anything outside of London when it comes to the UK?
York and Wales.
What the
That's
fuck?
it.
York?
Yeah.
The fuck? That surprised me.
Yeah, because New York is the thing. So everyone usually asks, well, where's Old York? And usually someone gets a response, oh, it's in England.
Oh, yeah. Did you know that a lot of places in America are named after cities in England?
Yeah. Makes sense.
Yeah, like you've got, well, fuck knows.
New Jersey?
Can't think of... Yeah. Well, is there New Jersey here? Oh, there's Jersey, of course. Yeah, and you've got, like, New England, which is a thing.
Yeah, you never really think about it, but when you give it 2 minutes of thought, you realize, oh, yeah, everything's named after somewhere else.
Yeah, like Jamestown as well. Like, I think that was, I don't know why Jamestown was named Jamestown, but that was the first ever city in the United States, wasn't it?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that John Adams, was it John Adams? I don't think it was John Adams.
No, John Adams was much later.
Okay, yeah, well, someone, when they colonized it, they called it Jamestown. And I don't know why they called it Jamestown, but they did.
I thought it was after King James or something.
Oh, it could have been, actually, yeah. But this is the thing about the whole Antifa again, like bringing it back to politics, is that they're destroying monuments at the moment. They're going around smashing up, like, say, the oldest monument to Christopher Columbus.
Yeah, Christopher Columbus and Robert E. Lee. Christopher Columbus, I kind of get, because if you look at the actual history, he was a horrible person. But, like, Robert E. Lee, I don't quite get that.
It's with the Christopher Columbus thing, though. He was just an explorer. Like, he never owned a slave.
he never owned a slave, but he did wipe out a lot of people, you have to admit.
Yeah, but a lot of people think that he was British and he was Portuguese.
No, he was from Portugal. He was ethnically Italian, and he was there in the name of Spain.
Yeah, because well, he asked. He wanted to go because he wanted to find the east part of India, and he didn't know America existed at this point. So he thought when he found out the world was round, he went west, thinking that he'd come to the east side of India, but he ended up on the exploring, and then he found the West Indies. That's why he called it the West Indies.
Actually, it was well known that the world was round at the time, but he thought it was pear-shaped.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he thought he could go straight from Spain to India.
Oh, okay. But yeah, so he didn't really call, like a lot of misconceptions are that he caused colonialism. He just found what would happen to be colonized later on.
Yeah, and he wasn't even the first European to get there.
Wasn't he?
There's evidence that Vikings made it there first.
Oh yeah, I've heard about that. But yeah, I don't understand the whole monument smashing because like that's literally what ISIS are doing right now. Like that is actually an ISIS thing, destroying history.
Well, that's just kind of what you do whenever you take over anywhere. You destroy their national identity and culture.
The one I think when it comes to Antifa, like I don't care if you want to punch someone in the face, you know what I mean? I mean, I'm from England, we don't have guns, so people get punched in the face over here all the fucking time. But when it comes to destroying national history, that I'll never be. That is the one thing I think that they're doing. That is the worst thing because that's not replaceable.
Yeah.
Like the one thing I favour Great Britain over anywhere else is the history because it's such an old country. We've got like pubs, we've got bars that are 1,000 years old that are built in the side of mountains and stuff. And I think that that makes what a country is beautiful, regardless of if you find out that pub was once owned by a king that killed someone or did some bullshit. I don't think destroying monuments is like that's never going to be forgivable.
And like a lot of the monuments they're destroying make no sense. Like, you know, they tore down a Robert E. Lee statue. While Robert E. Lee did fight for the Confederacy, he never owned a slave. He actively advocated against slavery in the Confederate Congress.
I did see. I saw a quote from him on. I don't know if I didn't check the citation. It was like one of them pictures with like the quote next to it. And he was a big. He really went against slavery. He didn't even want to own a slave.
Yeah, he didn't. He inherited some, but he managed to find a legal loophole that allowed him to free them.
I don't know. I did like the whole. Oh, does that mean that we have to knock down Auschwitz and stuff like that? Have you seen them memes? Like, we need to knock down the Great Pyramids and stuff like that.
Because they were built by Jews. Yeah,
because they were built by Jewish slaves.
Yes.
Which is actually very interesting because the Jewish slaves made the bricks, but they didn't move them.
Apparently, there's a theory stating that it wasn't actually built by slaves because Egyptian slaves weren't given marked graves, and all of the slaves that built the Great Pyramids have a grave.
I don't know about that, but
I
do know that they didn't have the Jews moving the bricks up the pyramid because the Jews were seen as physically inferior, and it was perceived that they couldn't be able to do it.
The Jews have had it hard over the last 4,000 years, haven't they?
Yeah.
Well, that's just the world for you. But
when you got like when you got a nose that big, you're just asking for
it. Well, there you go. But yeah, so is there anything you want to add on to the Antifa thing or the healthcare?
Yes, just Antifa, the useful idiots. And if they were smart enough, they could just vote in for bigger government. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, and Antifa are just the foot drones of the professors and politicians.
Oh yeah, no, Soros as well.
Oh yeah, and Soros.
Oh yeah, Soros. Wait, the neocons will not be happy at us for bringing up their sugar daddy in this conversation.
They, but yeah,
I saw a thing on Craigslist to help riot for something somewhere. I wasn't really paying attention. In Texas, I think it was a place near Rockport, which is, in case you don't know, Rockport was the first city that got hit, and it got the worst hit out of all of the affected area. They wanted to riot just outside of Rockport, which is insane.
For what?
Something about a statue. I once again, I wasn't really paying attention.
Any thoughts on Charlottesville? Just about that situation on Christopher Cantwell?
Everyone there was a jerk.
Yeah.
A right cunt. But I think that's all the time I've got. So I'm gonna have to leave you here.
all right, yeah, we can call it. We can call it here if you want. I think my connection's starting to go a bit weird.
Okay, but it was a nice conversation.
Yeah, this was great.
I hope you enjoy the content, and hopefully later there will be a cool Capitalist Kids stream.
Yeah, I'll be when this gets uploaded, I'll share the link onto my Facebook page.
Okay.
I'll mirror it onto my YouTube.
Yeah, what I'll do is I'll download your YouTube video and then I'll